Good morning, everyone who's probably just joining into the webinar now. It's 9 a.m. Vancouver time, noon on the East Coast, so we'll give everyone another minute or so to get settled and we'll start the webinar. If you are joining into the webinar and you're having trouble hearing the audio, please send a comment through on the chat function and we'll see if we can get you some technical help. Great. Well, good morning, everyone. And I'll start out at this end, and I wanted to welcome all of you. It's a good morning on the West Coast and just a good afternoon now on the East Coast. On behalf of my colleagues at AdMare BioInnovations and at the Center for Probe Development and Commercialization, also known as CPDC. Thank you really all for attending our webinar, taking the time out of your busy days to join in this morning and to hear about our newly launched CAREY initiative, which stands for the CPDC AdMare Radiopharmaceutical Initiative. My name is Lana Janes, and I'm a venture partner here at AdMare, which is Canada's life science venture with offices and facilities in both Vancouver and Montreal. And I work with an experienced team of pharmaceutical industry veterans and R&D technical team where we're focused on partnering with academia, clinicians, and emerging companies to help incubate and advance promising therapeutics with them. Via our initiative with CPDC, we're really excited to be bringing together two national organizations that will leverage each other's expertise, infrastructure, and innovative science to advance research towards new radiotheranostics, and that's both radiotherapeutics and radio imaging agencies as well. I'm sure all of you who are on this webinar this morning know that there continues to be momentum in the radiopharmaceutical space via new company creation, new investments, and acquisitions in the space. It's an exciting time in the renaissance of radiopharmaceuticals, and they represent, I'm sure all of us agree that they represent a highly promising, expanding therapeutic modality in the personalized medicine space. My colleagues and I are both really excited to be initiating this initiative and come together to help you as researchers and clinicians and emerging companies advance the promising research that could hopefully lead to new targeted personalized medicine opportunities and diagnostic treatments in the field of oncology and beyond. Later, just as a housekeeping matter, because we have such a great turnout this morning, there won't be any audio available to participants, but please do put questions in the chat function and we'll be collecting them, and towards the end of the webinar, we will be answering some of your questions. The other thing I would say is I'll take a few minutes now to introduce you a bit to AdMare. That will be followed up by my colleague, Dr. Gadir Shubasi from CPDC, who will talk you through what is CPDC and what will they bring to this initiative. And then finally, my colleague, Dr. Muniazi, will tell you some specifics around the CARI initiative. So moving on to what is AdMare BioInnovations? So next slide, please, Eric. So as I said, I'd like to just take a few minutes to introduce you to our AdMare's mission and activities. Many of you will have known AdMare by our predecessor companies, namely CDRD, Accelerex, and Neomed, which have all joined forces in the past year to help advance the Canadian biopharmaceutical industry across Canada. And this is really, our foundation is in the world-class research that comes out of Canadian academic organizations like the ones represented here on the webinar. Next slide, please. So what is it that we do? And what we like to say is we really do three things here, which is we help build companies, grow companies, and train the next generation of scientists. And what's germane for this webinar today is talking about how we can help build, companies and grow companies focused in the radiopharmaceutical space. So next slide, please, Eric. This is just a map to tell you some of the things we've been doing in AdMare. And as I mentioned, we really help found and build companies of scale. And this is an example of about 20 emerging companies across the country from east to west coast that have come out of great academic innovation. And they represent a broad range of therapeutic modalities and areas. And many of these companies will be familiar to you. Hopefully you've worked with some of them or are aware of some of the work that they're doing, but it goes so broadly from platform opportunities all the way through to specific therapeutic opportunities, both on the biologics and small molecule side. Next slide, please, Eric. Great. And this is just a little bit of a few of the metrics around what we do. And what's important is we want to draw your attention to the amount of investment that we've been able to help the companies that we've helped spin out raise. And for those of you who have started on the journey already in building out companies, will know that funding and investment is the oxygen that's really needed to convert strong academic science into companies that can survive and thrive. And that's something that we try and help our companies with as well, and that's important to us. We know that's the lifeblood to keep the science advancing towards the clinic and beyond. The other metric on the other side is that these companies represent 85 potential new therapies and counting. And as part of the CAREY initiative today, we're going to be working with CPDC and hopefully some of you on this webinar to add some new radiotherapeutic and diagnostic opportunities to this list. So we want to see that number go up past 85 and have a focus in radiotherapeutics. Next slide, please. At our end at AdMare, we have been focused traditionally on the on drug development on the small molecule and biologic side. And we offer a full range of scientific, technical, business, and drug development expertise to bring to those partnerships. And this expertise, so on the far left, you'll see this light bulb. This is what we're going to be talking about today and what we're combining with CPDC to provide that joint expertise. Clearly, their expertise and experience in the radiopharmaceutical space is unparalleled in Canada or worldwide. And so that's why we're really excited to be partnering with them today. Next slide, Eric. This is just a little bit of the mug shots from some of our team here at AdMare. The take-home message is we do have a dedicated team of experienced drug discovery and development experts. So folks who have come from industry with decades of experience, so we're dating ourselves a bit there. As well, that experience comes from small, medium, and large pharma biotech companies and CROs. We're also experienced in building out, emerging enterprises. So it's not just large pharma that we have experience in. Next slide, please. Importantly, since many of you are academic scientists on the call, in addition to that R&D leadership piece, we also have depth of experience with scientific, technical, and business expertise needed to help advance your drug development programs. And with over 50 FTEs in drug development, and we are also able to leverage CROs and partnerships to help advance your programs. Effectively, what we look to do is build a team around you and your technologies to do what's needed to advance your science and try and drive it towards funding and advancement through to commercialization and into the clinic. Next slide. I won't go through all of these parts as well, but as you can see, we have a full complement of expertise across multiple therapeutic areas here at AdMare. Some of the most relevant to the targeted radiotherapeutics and diagnostic side include deep expertise in antibody engineering and development, medicinal chemistry, synthetic chemistry. We do have also deep expertise and experience in antibody drug conjugates through our experience of developing Kairos, which is now part of Zymeworks, a successful ADC company. located here in Vancouver, and we can leverage that deep experience in developing antibody drug conjugates for helping to build the next generation of radiotherapy conjugates. Next slide. And then importantly, we can also help bring beyond that pharmaceutical industry experience, additional expertise that we call commercial know-how to help you advance your therapies and to build partnerships and attract the capital you need to be able to advance them. And we have a team of over 20 folks in-house who are really focused on doing that development pathway planning, intellectual property positioning, company creation and management, financing, and access to regulatory expertise. And we know from our experience that these types of resources are really hard for early stage discovery programs and early stage ventures to tap into. And we think that they're critical. Well, we know from experience that they're critical to really help transform those promising discoveries into leading platforms and assets for new company creation. So beyond the technical expertise, we try and bring what we call this commercial know-how as well to these programs. Next slide. Briefly, we have 3 world-class R&D centers. One of them is actually under construction now in Montreal, so there'll be 2 there and 1 in Vancouver. That amounts to over 200,000 square feet of state-of-the-art industrial drug development labs and shared service facilities. And the current innovation center in Montreal houses 20 plus resident companies, so providing that critical space for young fledgling companies to be able to grow and advance their therapies. Next slide. And then importantly, we have an extensive national and international network of partners in industry, academia, the investment community, and translational research centers to really help access the required resources that programs need. And the CARI initiative is exactly the important kind of partnership that we want to highlight today, which is a great example of how we bring together 2 organizations which have differing but complementary skill sets to be able to help advance the most promising therapies coming out of academia and clinicians and small entities in Canada. And then my last slide, please. We're very fortunate that we have the generous support of provincial and federal governments, industry foundation partners, and we do have some commercial capital that we've generated successfully ourselves to be able to put towards these programs. And as I said, my colleague Munya will tell you more about that program and the CARI program and what's available to you as researchers if you'd like to move into this incubator program with us. But the important part is both of our organizations have strong financial runways to really be able to help drive those impactful discoveries forward and fund the science. And with that, I'd really like to turn the presentation over to my colleague at CPDC, Dr. Gadir Shubashi, who'll tell you about the tremendous work being done at CPDC in the targeted radiotherapeutic space. So Gadir, over to you.
Thank you, Lana. Hello, everyone, and thank you for this great introduction. It's great to see such a large presence with us today. On this note, I would like to introduce CPDC as well as myself. My name is Dr. Gadir Shubashi. I am the Business Development Manager at CPDC. In my role, I play many responsibilities, including solidifying partnerships, client acquisitions, and building relationships for CPDC. And I have been fortunate enough that my arrival at CPDC has been marked with the launching of CARI. So this has been a very exciting collaboration to see come to fruition. So in this section, as Lana mentioned to you, I will go over an overview of what CPDC is and what it has accomplished over the years in the radiopharmaceutical industry. So on the next slide, please, Eric. CPDC, which stands for the Center for Probe Development and Commercialization, has been founded since 2008. It belongs to the Center of Excellence for Research and Commercialization network that is not for profit. We have grown over the last 12 plus years in our presence here. So now we have over 110 employees. We are federally and provincially funded, and as Lana mentioned, it's our oxygen. So we have accomplished over 49 million in our grant funding. In the last 12 plus years since its inception, CPDC has gained global recognition in its presence in the radiopharmaceutical industry. So we have built high capacity and expertise in this niche industry, as you will hear more details in the next slides. Our headquarters is located in Hamilton, Ontario. So we are co-located at the McMaster University, which is well known as the Radiation University of Canada. And on this slide, I would simply summarize all the what has been created at CPDC since its inception. So we have built a strong clientele network in the radiopharmaceutical world. And this is marked by several of our strengths. So to summarize for you, our infrastructure entails designing and commissioning a number of radiopharmaceutical facilities, 5 in total, 3 of which are Health Canada licensed and 2 of which are FDA approved. We operate in a GMP compliant manner. So we currently have 7 clean rooms that are certified as GMP facilities. We have access to 3 cyclotrons, and we also have isolators and hot cells that currently serve 9 therapeutic programs, which are hopefully going to graduate to the clinical and the commercial phases. Our track record entails manufacturing of radiopharmaceuticals, both as diagnostics as well as therapeutics. Up to date, we have covered over 30 programs, and we continue to grow that number. We have experience in a variety of radioisotopes. We've selected a few examples on this slide here. As an example of imaging, radioisotope is F18 or gallium-68. Another example for a radioisotope that is used in therapeutics is lutetium-177. Another strength that CPDC is strongly known for in this industry is its regulatory affairs. So we have a track record in successful submissions and making it to the clinical trials successfully. We've built strong relationships with a variety of clients to help them designing clinical trials and giving them some regulatory strategy advice for their successful programs. As I mentioned earlier, we have built a global recognition in this radiopharmaceutical industry. We currently have 9 international clients, and another forte of CPDC is actually its logistics department. So despite the tricky short half-life or shelf life of the products that we deal with, we have successfully shipped our products to destinations as far as Australia and South Africa, speaking to the strength of our logistics department. So this is a summary of what CPDC has accomplished over the years. So on the next slide, please, Eric. For those of you who are joining us with just a brief introduction on the radiopharmaceuticals, in case you haven't been exposed to this field before. So it's a very unique pharmaceutical in the sense that it's conjugating or linking a radioisotope to a small molecule, to a peptide, or to an antibody. So just a brief introduction. So ionizing radiation can be commonly grouped into 3 categories, depending on its emission, alpha, beta, or gamma particles that differ in their energy level in their ionization radiation and how well they penetrate their target. And of course, these are characteristics that determine what the use of this radioisotope when it's conjugated to its target can be for. So as an example, an alpha particle such as actinium-225 is known for its high energy, and when it's conjugated to a target drug, it can be used as a radiotherapeutic. Another example is a beta emitter such as lutetium-177, which is a commonly used one in many of our programs nowadays. A gamma emitter is an example of a radioisotope that could serve as an imaging diagnostic agent such as indium-111. So these are just illustrations of some of the examples. And even though they're divided into therapeutics or diagnostics, in fact, there is a term now called theranostics, which means you combine both a radiotherapeutic and a radiodiagnostic by taking your molecule or the target of interest and conjugating it to two different isotopes, one used for diagnostic and one used for therapeutic. So this is really how versatile this field has become, and we have a few programs that operate on this manner, in fact. There are examples of some commercially available radiopharmaceuticals that are used as diagnostics, such as glucovision, which is FDG. This is the first commercial product that has been it has been founded at CPDC, and it is used as a diagnostic agent for lung cancer, for example. And it's obviously, there are other examples of small molecules, but another example is large molecules such as peptides when conjugated to radioisotopes such as Lutathera, which is a commercially available product. It's a lutetium dotatate product that is being sold by a Novartis company called AAA. So that's just to give you a brief overview of radiopharmaceuticals and how versatile they can be used in the oncology and beyond fields. On the next slide, please, Eric. This is a slide that really determines how unique it is to manufacture such drugs. And while the patient is arriving to the clinical site where they are receiving their therapeutic, for example, a lutetium dotatate dose, they're making the travel trip, they're going towards their final destination. At the bottom panel at CPDC, the manufacturing is taking place. So it begins with lutetium-177 being ordered and arriving at exactly the time that the patient is starting their journey. And the synthesis takes place in the middle of the night. That's followed by, obviously, QC that will, upon its completion, release the product and being delivered to the patient just in time so that it can be effective for their therapy. So this really illustrates one of the mantras that CPDC operates upon, which is just-in-time manufacturing, because as you can imagine, any delay or any impact on this schedule could affect the life of a patient or the chance of this patient receiving this therapeutic dose. So if we can move on to the next one, please. So just in time, and first, getting it right also at the first time is critical, as you imagine, because we don't want to have any errors that will impede the process of the patient receiving their therapeutic dose. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we are co-located at the McMaster University campus. There is a cyclotron that is operating here. We have a strong relationship with McMaster. We share offices and the manufacturing facilities with McMaster. This is one of the strengths that CPDC helped CPDC grow in this field. But in addition to that, we also have a strong relationship with the University Health Network, or UHN for short. In fact, it's a joint venture, joint between CPDC and UHN that is called CAMPROBE, and we'll cover that in a later slide. But we also have an early R&D program, a very exciting one that we have launched with Dana-Farber Cancer Institute that we are hoping to expedite towards the clinical translation very soon. On the next slide. Just a brief summary of what CAMPROBE is. So CAMPROBE, as I mentioned, is a joint venture between UHN and CPDC that has been founded since 2011, and it's located right at the center of downtown Toronto, so strategically being surrounded by the major clinical and research hospitals in the middle of the city. So we have access to all the clinical trials and investigational programs that are going on down there. And we operate in a GMP compliant manner using the same quality system as CPDC. It has succeeded over the last 9 years plus in supplying 8 investigational drugs, including lutetium dotatate as well as gallium dotatate. Since 2016, CAMPROBE succeeded in also supplying more than 1,500 patient doses. And these are just examples of some of the investigational products that are manufactured daily at CamProbe, including DCFPYL, which is a prostate cancer imaging agent. On the next slide, illustrates our presence in Ontario. So CPDC has been fortunate enough to form strong relationships with the key institutions, hospitals, research facilities within Ontario. So all the ones that you see highlight here, CPDC is proud to have strong relationships that we continue to foster on a daily manner. And not only that, if we go to the next slide, you will see that we have also extended our presence across Canada. So on the next slide, Eric. Oh, sorry, this is just highlighting some of the products that we have built our relationships on with the centers that are illustrated here. Here you can see our presence has extended by virtue of the fact that we just joined our exciting collaboration with AdMare BioInnovations. We have solidified our presence from East to West Coast. So we currently, thanks to AdMare's collaboration, have a presence in BC as well as in Quebec. We also have ongoing relationships with Alberta, with Saskatchewan, with Winnipeg, and we are working to reach the East Coast in the near future. So we have become a pan-Canadian foundation, and proud of that. So the next slide, please. This just again depicts the trend of growth that CPDC has fostered since its birth. So over the 12+ years, you can see how we continue to support clinical research and how we've supplied a number of clinical trials over the last 12+ years, be it for client products as well as for CPDC and CamProbe products. So the trend is increasing, and we are working very hard to continue that trend in the following years. Next slide, please. This is to summarize the pipeline that CPDC has. I've already mentioned that GlucoVision, which is the commercial name for FDG, is our first commercially available product at CPDC that is used for lung cancer imaging. But in addition to that, we also have OsteoVision, which is used for bone cancer imaging. Both lutetium dotatate as well as gallium dotatate are currently manufactured at CamProbe, and they're used for neuroendocrine tumor imaging. And we also continue to grow our F18 PSMA, which is a prostate cancer imaging agent that is currently in phase 3. And I already mentioned to you an exciting program at Dana-Farber, which is targeting a CD8 for imaging diagnostic purposes. So the next slide, please. Speaking of prostate cancer, we have played a pivotal role in this industry by virtue of the fact that we've been funded by 2 charities here in Movember, which is looking out for men's health. Prostate cancer is in its center, as well as Prostate Cancer Canada. We have brought forward, we've spearheaded 2 programs, DCFPYL, which is a prostate cancer imaging agent that is currently manufactured at CamProbe. And we've also managed to develop and enhance our next generation F18 PSMA 1007 program. And we excitingly have an exclusive license for a PSMA 1007 across Canada from a German company called ABX. So on the next slide. This is just to summarize the exciting project that I've mentioned to you. We've done in collaboration with DFCI, which is in its early R&D that is showing very promising proof of concept results, bringing forward a PET imaging agent that is targeting CD8. So you can imagine by targeting CD8, you are potentially going to target a variety of different tumors. We're currently in the process of optimizing preclinical studies and raising funding so we can bring this product to clinical translation. As you can see, the proof of concept results are shown, an image of the mice is shown on the right-hand side. Following the slide is a summary of what CPDC has succeeded in addition to its expertise in manufacturing. We've spun out 2 companies, Fusion Pharmaceuticals, which likely some of you have heard, has filed an IPO in 2020 for $212 million. And the CEO of Fusion is Dr. John Valiant, who is actually the founder of CPDC. We have really successful relationships with this company and continue to work with them. We also have a new generous coming up soon. It's a dedicated CMO for radiotherapeutics that has begun its construction and hoping to get that commissioned within by 2024. I've already talked about Probe as a joint venture between UHN and CPDC and its pivotal role in R&D and clinical trial support. And we also have Artemis, which is a combination of foundations like BCCA, Triumph, Lawson, and Ontario, and CPDC that are bringing forward a solid target technology in this industry. And following that, it is my last slide, and I want to thank you all for being here. The BD team at CPDC is small, but we are led by Dr. Bruno Paquin, who is the Senior Director of Business Development and has been the foundation of the CARI initiative with AdMare, as well as an intern who is Vivian Wong, who also played a really key role in bringing CARI forward. And with this, I will bring it back to you, Lana, so you can introduce our next speaker. Thank you all.
Great, thank you, Gadir. That was incredible. And we're so lucky in Canada to have an organization like CPDC with its strength in radiopharmaceuticals and its experience. I'd like to call upon my colleague now, Dr. Munya Aziz, who is our Vice President of Partnerships in AdMare, and he'll speak to you about some of the details around the CAREY initiative. So Munya, over to you.
Thank you, Lana, and hello everyone. Bonjour à tous. So my name is Munya Aziz. I'm leading the program development and partnerships at AdMare. As Lana said, I will spend some time now to go through the specifics of this great CAREY initiative. So please, next slide, Eric. So, as mentioned before, CAREY is a collaboration between CPDC and AdMare, where we will bring our respective resources together to advance and speed up the development of promising radiopharmaceutical opportunities. Next slide, please. Our main objectives through this initiative are first to identify innovative and promising radiopharmaceutical opportunities arising from our academic partners and also emerging startups and SMEs, to establish a compelling and rigorous drug development program around selected opportunities, and finally to de-risk and drive the development of proof of concept data that will support the commercialization process of new radiopharmaceutical assets. Next slide, please. So this initiative is dedicated to academic labs and SMEs across Canada. We will provide both in cash and in-kind contribution to support the development of selected programs. You've heard from Lana and Gadir our respective complementary and extensive capabilities in terms of capital and expertise, in particular in this specific field. There is no specific deadline for application. However, our aim is really to start working on 1 or 2 projects by the first quarter of 2021. So if you have an interest in partnering with us, I strongly invite you to contact us and apply fairly quickly. As a first step in the development of selected projects over the first year or 2, we will provide up to $200,000 as a combination of in-kind and cash to develop the project up to the next important milestone. Next slide, please. I will not go through the details of this slide, but this is just to highlight the wide range of our program offering. With our respective expertise at CPDC and AdMare, we will provide a personalized support to advance and add value to your specific project in terms of wet lab activities, including biologics development and support, chemistry, manufacturing and control, radiochemistry research, but also we will provide regulatory support in the radiopharmaceutical space, and more importantly, we will help you to generate the critical data sets to better position your radiopharmaceutical program when looking for strategic partners or additional funding. Next slide, please. What are we looking for? We are quite broad, and we're interested in early in vitro or in vivo proof of concept or preclinical stage radiopharmaceutical programs targeting oncology as primary focus, with the use of radiopharmaceuticals for both therapeutics and tracers in companion diagnostic imaging application. We are also opportunistic and can potentially be interested by radiopharmaceuticals in the neurology or cardiology space. This will be for new tracers addressing unmet medical needs in imaging diagnostics mainly. We have an interest in hit to lead stage targeting vectors with potential application to radiotherapeutics, whether antibodies, antibody fragments, peptides, and small molecules. And finally, we have an interest in all types of innovative radiopharmaceutical platforms, platform technologies such as novel chelator or linker technology, novel conjugation, chelation or labeling processes, etc. If you want to ensure before applying that your specific project is eligible and fits with CARI program, I strongly invite you to contact our scientific affairs and business teams at AdMare or CPDC. You have their contact info on our website, and at the end of this presentation, I will also give you their contact info, and they will answer all your questions and guide you with the application. Next slide, please. The projects will be selected based on various criteria, including the available data on the targeting vector and biodistribution. For example, we will look at the target expression on both tumor and normal tissues, the uptake of the targeting vector in cancer tissue versus normal tissue, etc. We will look at the competitive advantage and differentiation and assess if there are any key radio or non-radio competing programs on the same target, indication, and mechanism of interest. We will look at the novelty of the radioconjugate. We will look at the feasibility of the development plan. And very importantly, we will also look at the likelihood to add a significant value to the program and reach an important commercial milestone with our resources, expertise to this specific CARI program. Next slide, please. So the selection process is quite straightforward. Once we receive an application, we will have an internal review with both CPDC and AdMare scientists and business experts. If we decide to pursue with the due diligence on a specific project, we will work closely with the PI and the Technology Transfer Office to better understand the opportunity. We will build together a development plan with the main milestones and budget. And finally, we will negotiate a joint collaboration agreement with the institution or the SME, CPDC and AdMare, and finally jump into the most important part, which is advancing and working on the project. Important to note here that if you apply to the program and for any reason we decided not to pursue with further evaluation, we will share with you our internal review and the main reasons behind our decision. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, as part of the selection process, we will sign a collaborative agreement highlighting the main licensing terms. We are very flexible in terms of deal structure and business agreement, and we function in a risk-benefit sharing model, taking into account the stage of development of the program, the potential partners involved, the resources, the capital needed to reach the next inflection point, etc. The IP management is aligned with the respective policies of the institution or the SME, and the PI will retain the ownership of existing IP. Next slide, please. We strongly believe that this initiative will provide a distinct and compelling value proposition to many stakeholders. So for academic researchers, it is a path to advance very early stage research into valuable proof of concept. For Canadian life science companies, it is a way to access to all the essential catalytic resources needed to successfully advance the technology pipeline and scale up as a company. For patients, it is hopefully new options for the treatment of cancer. For investors, we will offer new validated and de-risked radiopharmaceutical opportunities for investment. And finally, for Canada, it is a tremendous opportunity to build a competitive advantage in this field. Next slide, please. A last word on the application. It is quite simple. The application forms are available online on both CPDC and AdMare websites. You just need to complete the different sections and provide any complementary documentation that will allow us to review the opportunity. We will contact you within 2 weeks to provide our initial feedback. Next slide, please. So I thought that we have there the, yes, we have them. So you have the names of the people that you can join both at CPDC and AdMare, so Hadir and Stuart, that will help you through the application. Thanks a lot for your attention, and Lana, over to you for the discussion.
Thank you, Munya. That was very clear, and I think really helpful and nicely sets out the process. As Munya indicated, we've tried to make the application process as simple as possible. We know you're all quite busy, and so there is an online form. It's not meant to be an exhaustive and lengthy process, but as a starting point to fill in some critical information so we can understand you and your research focus, and so that both organizations can come together and think about how we might be able to actually, based upon the resources that we have, if we think that we can be of help in advancing your program. So as Munya and Gadir both said, if there are any questions, please do reach out to both organizations, and we'd be happy to help you navigate through that process. I think there have been quite a few questions that have come in, and what I'd like to do is I'd encourage anyone to please keep sending in more questions on the chat line, but what I'll do is I'll just read some of the questions and then call upon my colleagues here, put them on the spot, and ask them for their input. One question was, will CPDC and AdMare be willing to support my program beyond the initial funding program through the CAREY initiative? That's a great question. And maybe I'll start with asking Munya to comment on that from a partnership point of view, and then I'll ask Gadir to join in as well.
Sure, thanks, Lana. So yes, clearly, you know, our aim is to build strong and long-term partnerships. So we will, our aim, you know, we are not a granting agencies. Our aim is really toward the commercialization of your technology. So we will build it up to a point of go, no go, or important milestone. And of course, if the results are positive, our aim is to continue supporting your program, whether as a joint partnership between CPDC and AdMare, or alone as specific institutions, if there is any specific interest from each institution. And our aim is really to help you and guide you and support you up to the stage where you will raise substantial capital from private firms. So our aim is to invest as long as the project, of course, is promising, as long as we reach important go, no go, and we have interesting data. So as I said, we will build with you long-term partnership, and this is really our way of working, whether for this initiative or for any kind of program within AdMare.
Thank you, Munya. Gadir, anything you'd like to add on that point?
Yes, thank you, Lana. And I would echo Munya definitely on what she said. CPDC's mission is not only to help early R&Ds, startups to begin their exciting programs, but also to foster any long-term potential of their programs, be it to make it to clinical trials, be it to make it to GMP manufacturing, whatever level they're at. If we see the potential, we are here to help them. This is our mandate, and this is what we're here to support. So CARI is just not meant to be, you know, if you're only an early startup, we can certainly extend beyond that and build a long-term relationship. So definitely echoing Munia's input on this.
Great, thank you, Gadir and Munia. You make my job easy because the next question relates to supporting later stage opportunities and can they fall within the CARI trial. So 2 questions that are related, which is 1, can you support clinical stage programs, and is there a program to fund a theranostic clinical trial sponsored by the company? So this is things that are further along in development, whether it's a diagnostic moving into the clinic or even a therapeutic moving into the clinic. Can CARI help support those initiatives as well? I think the short answer is yes, of course we can. Obviously, clinical trials can be very expensive. The therapeutic ones are more expensive than the diagnostic ones, but nonetheless, I think both organizations have critical experience in driving clinical stage programs, both on the radiopharmaceutical side and on the more general drug development side, in helping to advance those programs. So Gadir, anything that you'd like to comment on that? I mean, obviously CPDC has a long, rich history in being able to support companies driving things into the clinic, both on the diagnostic and therapeutic side. You talked a little bit about the bone scanning
Yes.
product you have, the FDG product, and clearly your experience in helping to build and spin out Fusion Pharmaceuticals, which is in the clinic now, I think puts CPDC in a really great position to be able to help clinical stage opportunities as well.
Absolutely, and we remained open and flexible when we structured the program offerings from the CPDC point of view. We do offer in-kind services, right? So whatever is entailed within that range, which is up to 100K per organization, if that covers an exciting theranostic program or an aspect of a therapeutic program, that is certainly something that we are open to reviewing and to considering for CARI. Yes.
Great, thank you. Munia, anything that you wanted to add as well on that point? No,
I think you covered everything.
Okay. Great. So another great question that we've received is CARI only available for Canadian located organizations? And I'll let Munia and Gadir speak to that as well. But as federally funded organizations and provincially funded, both of our organizations have mandates to help build the Canadian ecosystem. That being said, the Canadian ecosystem often gets built with excellent science from outside of Canada. Innovation does not know boundaries the way countries do. But perhaps I'll turn this over to Moon. Speaking about that point, I know that from the attendee list, there were several organizations that signed up that are outside of Canada. So it's a great question.
Yes, it's a great question indeed, Lena. And clearly, as you say, Lena, we are a national organization, so we are focusing mainly on growing, companies across Canada. That being said, if there is any new interesting opportunity that is coming from outside of Canada, we know that we need to think globally, and we are competing with the global world. So we have no problem of taking that opportunity and building that opportunity. Of course, if the work and the value that we will add is brought to Canada and hopefully will stay in Canada. So our aim is if there is any specific opportunity that is not in Canada, we will work with you so that there can be work that will be done. And we, as I said, in terms of agreement, we are very flexible, but we will work to make as much as possible work in Canada, to have people working on the technology in Canada, to build new IP in Canada, and hopefully to grow the company and to build a sustainable company here.
Great, thanks, Munya. Gadir, anything you wanted to add?
Munya said it all, and I echo that. I definitely think that, yes, it is our mandate to support research and innovation in Canada. However, we're definitely open to any global opportunities. We do have global presence in the radiopharmaceutical industry. We have great relationships with people abroad, and if it does entail that the in-kind services that we're offering could advance an exciting program, that will bring forward something to fruition that will benefit patients, we can definitely be open to that. I do agree with Munya, though, that maintaining IP in Canada would be something that is preferable and aligned with the CARI program. But we're certainly open to considering a global opportunity.
Great, thank you, Gadir. Here's another interesting question. And this is a bit of a technical question, but would it be useful to have nanoparticles with low dose of, for example, lutetium-177 for imaging, and then the same nanoparticle with a high dose for cancer therapy? So that advantage is that one only has to go through the safety research only once, and the nanoparticle can be conjugated to specific antibodies. And I think that's part of a bigger question of what other emerging therapeutic areas or applications are we seeing? And I think this is a great question, and I really appreciate it being submitted. And the answer is, I think part of it, and Gadir, I'll let you comment as well, but look, this field is emerging so quickly. For those of you who are following it closely, there's been one alpha emitter product approved to date. That was the Zyfigo program. We've got Lutathera that's been approved now, which is a beta emitter through lutetium-177. Really exciting work happening with the Endocyte trial and lutetium-177. But right now, the field is so broad and there's so much opportunity in terms of thinking about combination of alpha and beta particles, combination therapies of different types of radiopharmaceutical products. So this was a nice example. I think this question of next generation, let's call it brachytherapy, so targeted brachytherapy, perhaps being able to use antibodies on nanoparticles. But I think that from my view, the short answer is the field is so open and there's so many opportunities that it's almost exhausting how many things there are that can do. And I think that's part of the excitement around this CARI opportunity. In terms of what other innovation is out there and how can we help it, particularly early stage innovation where it might be in PI's labs and we're not hearing about it. But it's really promising, but it's, the earlier, the higher the risk. And we think that we can also really help in really drive that innovation towards a point to hopefully attract more investment and more partnerships. So that's a great question. Gadir, anything you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, sure, Lana. From the technical point of view, with respect to using the same radioisotope, just conjugating it, being used at low versus high doses with the same molecule, is definitely something that some of our clients have used, and it can be done, for example, with the lutetium-177. However, we did find that the quality of imaging when you conjugate lutetium-177 to a certain molecule is not as high as it would be with a radioisotope that is typically used for imaging, like indium, for example. So while the program initiates with this excitement that you can just simply take the molecule, conjugate it with lutetium and use it at high versus low doses, right? There are many good examples for why that could be useful from the safety aspect and, from economic aspect. However, it may not give the same quality as if you were using a different radioisotope. So it is something that we've come across, and eventually the clients have decided to switch to another radioisotope for the diagnostic. But the value of that, this I think applies to the nanoparticle question, and I believe there was another question about lutetium-177, if that could be used as a diagnostic as well as therapeutic radioisotope. I hope this addresses both questions from the technical side.
Yeah, that's a great response, Gadir. And I think that this is part of the strategy that I think our organizations can come together and help researchers address, because the critical question is, what will you be using the imaging for? Is SPECT imaging good enough for you? Or do you want to move to PET imaging where you can have higher resolution? Or are you going to be using the imaging for the point of enrolling patients, for identifying suitable patients, or are you actually going to be using it to try and see micrometastases? So it's really all of these questions come together in terms of let's build out that clinical development plan together, and amongst our organizations, or even bringing CROs in. And that's part of the funding that we look to bring. If we can't get you the answers and don't have the expertise in-house, the money is available to bring in the best CROs in the field as well to help build out that really critical, well thought out development plan for execution that will enable you to really generate, as Munya said, those value generating data sets to attract more partnership and more funding into your program, so to keep it moving. So it was a great question. I think we have time for maybe one more question, and it's a broad question, and it's for those of us who are early stage developers here, including from academia. What advice would you give us to be able to navigate the waters and make our programs attractive for partnering and commercialization? So that's $1 million question. And I think we've touched upon a lot of that in our previous discussions over the past hour. But any final comments, Gadir or Munya, that you'd like to add to that from your experience on the business development side in partnering? What would be your sage advice to academics who are trying to partner their programs right now?
Munya, you want to take it first?
Yeah. Sure. You know, I really like the African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. And I think it takes also a village and a wide spectrum of expertise to build and raise a successful, you know, program and company. So I think that, you know, the academic researchers and the PIs with whom we work have a tremendous and broad expertise and can help us navigate, you know, through the targets, to understanding the biology of the systems, to understanding the different interactions. But what we can bring to the table is really all the rest of the village that will make sure that your early stage technology will become a successful program that will be attractive for additional funding, for the industry, for any private capital firm. So we look at the program with all our various expertise in terms of regulatory, in terms of target validation, in terms of identification of the best indication, in terms of development plan, in terms of commercial opportunity, in terms of positioning, competitive advantage, differentiation, how we can build the best differentiated program. So as I said, it takes so many expertise that, you know, for me, it's like, don't be shy. You have a great expertise, but we need, if you want to make your program successful, you need many other expertise. And I think that we have, as Lana and Gadir showed you during the presentation, we have really all in place in that specific space with this this joint program between CPDC and AdMare. So a long answer.
But you said it all, Munya, and I would echo you, and I would just say to the academic fellows who are joining us today, I come from an academic background. I know what it's like being in that space where you are trying to transit into the clinical stage, and I would advise to seek mentorship, seek guidance, take advantage of any programs that you could get your hands on. The CARI village, as Munya said, is here for you, even if it's seeking consultation, getting some business development, commercialization strategies, regulatory advice on what it takes to bring a product from an early R&D stage to phase 1. This is something that I would strongly advise the academics who are, or even the early startups. I know they are in a continuous learning phase. And don't hesitate to ask questions, because this is what our organizations like AdMare and ourselves are here for. We are here to help. We're here to grow this industry, hopefully strengthen its presence in Canada. We look forward to seeing what innovations are happening. As Lana said, we know there's a lot going on in your benches. So if you bring them forward to us, we can help you assess what would be valuable to bring forward, or how to strengthen the chance and de-risk a product from being early on to a potential towards the clinic. So I hope this helped.
Gosh, Gadir and Munya, that's a perfect ending, and we're just at 10 o'clock now, so I know everyone will have to run to their next call. But look, you know, it can be done. Look at what Fusion Pharmaceuticals has achieved over the past several years, and that all starts on a bench somewhere in an academic lab. I just want to quickly thank all of the attendees who generously gave their time today to listen to us talk about our CAREY initiative. We're really excited about it. There's been a team working on this for many, many months now to have this come together. And we're both national organizations, and we're here to help you. And so we're looking forward to some of you reaching out to us, and even if it's with questions, if it's not a full application, but look, we're here to help you. And I want to thank the whole team at CPDC and AdMare who've worked so long to help bring this together. And hopefully we'll translate this into being able to help some of the researchers on this call today in advancing their therapies. So I guess I'll end with that. It's 10:01, I'm 1 minute over. So thank you everyone on behalf of the whole team here for giving us your time today and letting us share with you the exciting CARI initiative.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you all.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. The same with everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.